A father finally tells the truth after carrying years of guilt. A daughter is forced to choose between the life she built and the one she's always longed for. A family begins to heal just as everything threatens to fall apart. And when everyone believes the worst is finally over, a single explosion changes everything. Here. Instead, every person is forced to confront something they've been running from. For Maggie, it's her future. For Sully, it's the weight of his past. For Cal, it's the fear that's controlled his entire life. And for the entire town, it's the possibility of losing the place that brought them together. The story begins immediately after Sedona's terrifying medical emergency. Everyone fears the seizure could be the beginning of something much worse. As Maggie rushes to help her, her years as a neurosurgeon instantly take over. While everyone else panics, she stays calm. Sedona eventually regains consciousness, but instead of agreeing to treatment, she refuses to go to the hospital. That decision immediately worries both Maggie and Cal, because deep down, they know something isn't right. Back at the crossing, life tries to return to normal. Maggie discovers something surprising. Her pregnancy is beginning to change everything around her. Even breakfast becomes a reminder. Her enormous plate of waffles covered in syrup becomes the center of playful teasing. Phoebe laughs, remembering the strange food cravings she had while pregnant with Maggie years ago. Sully joins in. For just a few moments, the house actually feels like a family again. It feels warm, safe, hopeful. But beneath those smiles, everyone knows bigger problems are waiting. Meanwhile, Frank and Edna continue struggling with each other. Old family wounds refuse to heal. Frank still can't let go of what happened to his mother's sacred regalia. Edna believes forgiveness is possible. Frank isn't ready. Their silence becomes almost as painful as an argument. It shows that sometimes the deepest scars aren't physical, they're emotional. Across the country, Sydney tries rebuilding her own life. Returning to New York means facing everything she once escaped. The modeling world hasn't changed. It's still filled with pressure, manipulation, and people willing to destroy others to protect themselves. Her confidence has disappeared. Every photo shoot reminds her of the trauma she experienced. Every camera flash feels like another test. But Sydney isn't running anymore. She's finally ready to fight back. Back at the crossing, Sully and Phoebe begin preparing for the baby's arrival. Together they buy a crib, baby clothes, tiny toys. For the first time in years, they work side by side without resentment. Sully quietly admits that maybe this baby could become the family's fresh start. Phoebe smiles, because despite everything they've lost, hope is beginning to return. But that hope doesn't last. Sedona's condition suddenly becomes much worse. She begins seeing insects crawling across her skin. She hears sounds that aren't there. She becomes terrified. Maggie immediately realizes these aren't ordinary symptoms. Something inside Sedona's brain is affecting her perception of reality. Cal desperately searches for answers. Then, he reveals something heartbreaking. Mental illness has haunted their family for generations. Their father suffered from schizophrenia, and ever since childhood, Cal has lived with one terrifying fear. What if he's next? That single fear explains everything. Why he never wanted children. Why he never allowed himself to dream about a family. Why he's always kept one foot out the door. Not because he didn't want love, because he was terrified of hurting the people he loved most. And that's when Maggie realizes, Sedona may not have inherited schizophrenia at all. The symptoms point somewhere else. Maybe, just maybe, this isn't the nightmare they feared. But if Maggie is right, the truth could change Cal's entire future.
As the story continues, Maggie becomes increasingly worried about Sedona's condition. After examining her symptoms, she believes Sedona's seizures and hallucinations are caused by a medical problem rather than schizophrenia. This gives Cal hope because he has spent his entire life fearing he inherited his father's mental illness, which is why he never wanted children. Meanwhile, Walter unexpectedly returns to the crossing to apologize. He finally admits that financial problems and dangerous debts pushed him into making terrible decisions that nearly destroyed Maggie's career and family. Although he begs for forgiveness, Maggie cannot forgive him so easily. Sully understands Walter's guilt because he has lived with his own mistakes, but he also knows that some wounds take time to heal. Phoebe decides to leave with Walter, believing he deserves one last chance to change. Before leaving, she says an emotional goodbye to everyone, especially Sully and Edna, leaving behind a gift that symbolizes their renewed friendship. At the same time, Sully transforms Maggie's childhood room into a beautiful nursery filled with old family photographs, reminding Maggie that despite everything, her father has always loved her. Another major turning point comes when Sully finally confesses to Lola that he believed he was responsible for the hit-and-run accident years ago. Heartbroken and overwhelmed, Lola walks away, unable to accept the truth. Meanwhile, Sydney returns to New York and bravely exposes her abusive manager by secretly recording his threats. His career is destroyed, and Sydney finally frees herself from the toxic modeling world. The episode ends with encouraging medical news about Sedona, giving everyone hope that her illness may be treatable after all. The focus now shifts to saving Sullivan's Crossing itself. Sully's beloved campground is scheduled for auction after financial troubles leave him unable to repay his debts. Glenn Perry sees it as a business opportunity, but for the people of Timberlake, the crossing is a place filled with memories and second chances. The entire community rallies behind Sully. Rob donates money, Finn collects coins from his classmates, and dozens of townspeople contribute whatever they can. One by one, they share heartfelt stories of how Sully helped them over the years, proving that his kindness has touched countless lives. On auction day, Maggie passionately reminds everyone that Sullivan's Crossing is worth far more than land or money. Despite everyone's efforts, Glenn appears to win the auction with a massive bid. However, he has only 30 minutes to pay the deposit. Thinking quickly, Maggie asks Frank and Edna to help delay Glenn's assistant at the bank. Frank cleverly brings in Finn's jar of coins, forcing the teller to count every coin while precious minutes slip away. Glenn misses the deadline, his winning bid is cancelled, and Sully officially keeps Sullivan's Crossing. The town celebrates the incredible victory, and an emotional Sully names Frank and Edna his partners in the campground. It feels like the perfect ending, but no one realizes that an even greater tragedy is just moments away.
After the emotional victory at the auction, the entire town breathes a sigh of relief. Against all odds, Sullivan's Crossing has been saved. The place that has brought so many broken lives back together will continue to stand, thanks to the generosity of the community and the people who refuse to give up. Wanting to celebrate the miracle, everyone gathers at Rob's Diner. For the first time in weeks, the atmosphere feels light again. Laughter replaces anxiety, and hope finally returns. Sully shares another emotional surprise by making Frank and Edna official partners in Sullivan's Crossing. It isn't just a business decision. It is his way of thanking the two people who stood beside him when he had almost lost everything. Their friendship has survived countless hardships, and now they will protect the crossing together. Meanwhile, Maggie finally makes the biggest decision of her life. After spending years running back and forth between Boston and Timberlake, chasing a career while ignoring what truly made her happy, she finally realizes where she belongs. She tells Sully that she isn't going back to Boston. She wants to stay at Sullivan's Crossing. Not only because her father needs her, not only because of the baby, but because this place has become her true home. Hearing those words means everything to Sully. For years, he dreamed of having his daughter back in his life, and now that dream has finally come true. At the same time, another piece of good news arrives. Sedona calls Cal and Maggie with the results of her medical tests. The doctors have finally discovered the real cause of her frightening symptoms. She doesn't have schizophrenia. Instead, she has an ovarian tumor called a teratoma, a rare condition that can sometimes cause unusual neurological symptoms, including hallucinations and seizures. The diagnosis is frightening, but it is also a huge relief, because the condition can be treated with surgery. For Cal, this changes everything. For years, he believed mental illness would eventually destroy his future, just as it had affected his father. Now he realizes that fear may have controlled his life for nothing. For the first time, he allows himself to imagine a future that once seemed impossible. That realization gives Maggie the courage to stop hiding her own feelings. She finds Cal alone and finally speaks the words she has been holding back for so long. She tells him she loves him. She explains that Sullivan's Crossing helped her rediscover the person she used to be, the version of herself that cared more about people than prestige. She finally understands that happiness isn't found in a successful career or a big city. It's found with the people who make you feel at home. Cal smiles and admits something he has been keeping inside since the day they first met. He has loved Maggie from the very beginning. The two finally embrace and share the kiss fans have been waiting for all season. After months of misunderstandings, missed opportunities, and emotional walls, Maggie and Cal finally choose each other. It feels like the perfect ending.
But happiness in Sullivan's Crossing never lasts for long. As everyone prepares for the celebration at Rob's diner, disaster strikes without warning. Inside the kitchen, a pot is accidentally left on the stove. Within minutes, flames begin spreading through the building. Smoke quickly fills the diner. Outside, panic erupts as people realize something horrifying. Finn is still trapped inside. Without thinking twice, Cal and Sully rush straight into the burning building. Neither of them hesitates. Saving Finn is all that matters. As firefighters race to the scene, Maggie can only watch helplessly. Seconds feel like hours. Finally, Cal emerges from the flames carrying Finn safely in his arms. The little boy is alive. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief. But then they realize something terrifying. Sully never came out. Firefighter Rafe rushes inside one last time, desperately searching through the smoke and collapsing debris. Moments later, he emerges alone. Sully is nowhere to be found. Before anyone can react, a massive explosion tears through the diner. The entire building erupts in flames. Maggie watches in absolute horror as the place explodes with her father still believed to be inside. She screams his name, trying to run toward the fire, but Cal holds her back as firefighters struggle to control the blaze. Completely overwhelmed, Maggie collapses into Cal's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. The season ends with everyone staring helplessly at the burning diner, unsure whether Sully has survived. The Season 2 finale is about much more than saving a campground. It is a story about redemption, forgiveness, family, and second chances. Sully spends the season confronting every mistake he has spent years trying to hide. Maggie finally stops living according to other people's expectations and chooses the life that truly makes her happy. Cal overcomes the fear that has controlled him since childhood. Sydney finds the courage to leave behind the toxic world that nearly destroyed her confidence. Even Walter begins taking responsibility for his actions, although earning forgiveness will be a much longer journey. But the biggest message of the finale is that home is not just a place. Home is the people who stand beside you when everything falls apart. Sullivan's Crossing survives because an entire community refuses to let it disappear. And just when everything seems perfect, the shocking fire reminds everyone that life can change in a single moment. Fortunately, Season 3 later confirms that Sully survives the explosion, but at the end of Season 2, viewers were left with one of the biggest cliffhangers in the series.